Today on the DML News podcast, we're going to talk about Trump's big conference that he had with Republican lawmakers yesterday. But we're also going to talk about some of the deportation reactions coming out of the media and celebrities, and it's kind of actually quite comical. We have this and a lot more, including a little update with Bill Gates and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. This and more, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hey everybody, it's Denny here on the mic, and Ryan is also here on the controls. DML is out today, but he will be back tomorrow. And with that said, today is going to be a little video heavy, just simply not because of the arrangement, but because there is actually a lot going on. Something very big that happened last night was that Trump actually had Republican lawmakers assemble down in Miami, I think at the Trump International Doral Resort, which is just classic, Trump having it at one of his places. But it was very important because they had this meeting as a way to set out what their long-term agenda is, not for just America, because that's more covered in Trump's inauguration speech and things of that nature, but more specifically the path of the Republican Party, especially with Mike Johnson as the House leader, which comes with its own contentious output as to where you land on that. Some are very displeased by it. Others believe that it's a necessary, I don't want to say necessary evil, but more of a necessary output at the moment, especially with Trump's support behind him. But there were a lot of key things that were hit at this conference yesterday. One that was very important was something that Pete Hegseth is going to be leading as Secretary of Defense. And this is very important, too, because we actually covered it as our main report in our newsletter, the 47 report, which is relative to all the service members, the military service members that were, let's just say, shown the door during the COVID lockdowns for not taking the COVID jab. So here is Trump giving a commitment as to what he expects out of the military, with one of those points being, let's get those soldiers back. Ryan, let's play that clip.
Signing 4 new executive orders. First is that I'm directing our new Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who's going to be great, by the way. Thank you for the support. Thank you very much for the support. You really did support him greatly. I think he's going to be fantastic. I know him very well. I think he's going to be fantastic. He's what we need to immediately begin the construction of a state-of-the-art Iron Dome missile defense shield, which will be able to protect Americans. We protect other countries, but we don't protect ourselves. And when Ronald Reagan wanted to do it many years ago, luckily we didn't. We didn't have the technology then. It was a concept, but we didn't. And now we have phenomenal technology. You see that with Israel. Where out of 319 rockets, they knocked down just about every one of them. So I think the United States is entitled to that, and everything will be made right here in the USA, 100%. And next, to ensure that we have the most lethal fighting force in the world, we will get transgender ideology the hell out of our military. It's going to be gone. In addition, we will stop our service members from being indoctrinated with radical left ideologies such as critical race theory. We're going to stop it. It's already been stopped. It's already been halted, totally halted. And finally, we will offer full reinstatement to any service member who was expelled from the armed forces due to the COVID vaccine mandate. And we will restore them to their former rank with full pay.
So like I said, we covered this pretty extensively in the newsletter yesterday, which, again, we would like all of you guys to start sharing as much as you can to anyone you know to get the newsletter's name out there. If you go to the47report.com, you'll actually have the sign-up page there. You can put in your own email address, a friend's email address. We definitely want to get as much word out as we can on the newsletter. It's been great so far, but it's covering everything that maybe the mainstream media is likely missing. And I think it's very important because even though Trump is now in office, the return rate of military members who were let go, I think it was 8,000 in total. It's about 40 that have actually come back to the military after those mandates were stripped, which is very telling because I think that's a clear sign that trust has been kind of eliminated between our service members and our soldiers and the higher ups of the military. which again, I think is why with Trump picking Hegseth, it's a very good choice on someone who is going to be a better middleman connection and not someone who's just in a suit. So I'm very happy to see that Trump's going to be leading the effort on that. We also have a clip here of Trump explaining his method behind the power of tariffs. Ryan, let's play that clip.
America is going to be very rich again, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. Do you know the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887, and this commission had one function: what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. It was set up 1887, and what to do with all of the money that we had. And again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary, because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money, and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but he was given a vast amount of money, and that was all made through tariffs.
But what I think is more ear-catching that came out of that conference yesterday was Trump's pledge to eliminate state income tax, which if he were to accomplish that, or reduce the size of the IRS, that's deserving of a Mount Rushmore placement for sure. Simply because that is going to be an accomplishment that very few presidents can aspire to in terms of changing the overall structure, nature, and pathway forward for Americans. This would be huge. So, Ryan, let's play that clip.
We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913. As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
Now, the one last clip I want to share from this conference, and I think this is what is going to be very telling and almost like a rallying call, because there was a longer extension of his ending part of his speech yesterday that was very unifying, because one thing that the Democrats can always be given credit for is how their party, although maybe not so much recently with the advent of what happened with Joe Biden, but before so, there was always a unity with Democrats, and that unity has fractured clearly. But with Republicans, there's always been the rhinos and then the truer patriots. We need to, one, either primary or get the rhinos on board with what the MAGA agenda is. But Trump's ultimate rallying call was, we need to work together because we have the power to actually accomplish things together. If we have the Lisa Murkowskis and the Susan Collinses and even the Mitch McConnells, despite him going to be giving up his power, so to say, it's very inhibiting, or I should say inconvenient, to the overall agenda Trump's trying to lay out. So here is where Trump also kind of reveals that with this latest election, I think Ryan can confirm it, every state had a shift to the Republican Party in comparison to the Democrats. Ryan, if you want to play that clip.
And for the first time ever, all 50 states, did you know this, shifted toward the Republican Party. We've never had that before. Nobody has, actually. It's never happened before. That's pretty good. You must be doing a good job, fellas. We won the largest number of African-American voters in Republican history, including 39% of black men, a record by a lot.
Yeah, so very hard-hitting conference yesterday with the Republican Party, and I'm just hoping that while we know what Trump is going to set out to do, and we also know that there are going to be Democrats getting in the way, the real question mark becomes the Republican loyalty to Trump. Are we going to get Jeff Flakes and Mitt Romneys, or are we going to get Marjorie Taylor Greenes and Matt Gaetzes? We really need people who are going to be in Trump's corner. And while I'm not the biggest Mike Johnson fan by some of his actions, my impression with Johnson is that he's going to be a very good yes man to Trump now that he's dealing with a Republican president and not a Democrat one. Now, before we continue on, there are two breaking stories from this morning that I just want to briefly touch upon. So this comes out of the Washington Post. I'm only going to touch on it briefly. The White House Budget Office is ordering a pause to all grants and loans dispersed by the federal government, according to an internal memo sent to agencies Monday, creating a significant confusion across Washington. So I'm not sure. Oh, in a 2-page document, Matthew J. Vaeth, the acting director of the White House Office of Management and Budget, instructed federal agencies to, quote, temporarily pause all activities related to obligations or disbursement of all federal financial assistance. So this is kind of just a continuation of Trump's pause across the board in spending money. I know he kind of did it for funding for foreign investments and foreign aid. I think with a few exceptions, including Israel, but for the most part, a lot of these countries are on a 90-day pause right now. So this is really just Trump trying to just say, hey, before we give out or shell out any more money, based on all the issues we have going on, let's put a pause. This is also a very big breaking story, and I'm hoping we're going to get more details as the day goes on. But an Indiana January 6th protester recently pardoned by President Trump was shot and killed by a sheriff's deputy this past weekend. Matthew Huddle, 42, of Hobart, Indiana, was fatally struck by gunfire during a traffic stop involving a deputy with the Jasper County Sheriff's Department. Police reported Huddle was pulled over on State Road 14 at around 4:15 p.m. when a traffic stop led to a deputy attempting to arrest Huddle. Authorities said an altercation occurred, which ended when the deputy opened fire, killing Huddle. That we'll have to kind of just wait more on details as to what initiated that scuffle. But I mean, that is just mind-boggling to be in prison for what happened that day, and then you finally are pardoned and released, and this happened. So I would say maybe check in on the DML News app and our newsletter next edition for more details on what's going on there, because that is just tragic. Brian, with the deportations that are taking place across the country, and one thing I do like, and this is something we joked about, and they're kind of doing it in a way, was that if we could have an official tally counter of those getting arrested and then deported, and ICE, their X account is actually giving the updates on a daily basis. But some of the reactions, I think, have been quite telling in terms of some people who are just out of touch, such as celebrities, and others who are out of touch because of mental illness. Like, for example, this is just too funny not to play. Here is a person, part of the LGBTQ community, saying that Trump is personally erasing her identity.
Pronouns are they, them. I am a disabled queer Chicanekis educator and scholar in Washington State with my expertise on curriculum and instruction. These are markers that were made illegal recently in the federal government. However, my very presence and humanity is in opposition to that legislation.
And then some of the other reactions are just kind of outright threatening, such as, I guess, in this clip here that's been going viral, an illegal alien working at a construction site with tattoos on his face. And as Trump just recently said in a Hannity interview, usually those guys aren't leading bank branches. So, right, let's play that clip.
All right, Daddy Trump, you want to take us the fuck out of here? Come do this shit then. Look what the fuck do your house. Look what the fuck do your streets. Come get it, bitch.
But Ryan, I think without a doubt, the most talked about, or more so, most recognized video reactions so far has to be, and this is kind of just random, of Selena Gomez, who I think is closer to our age, so maybe our audience wouldn't know her, but she's kind of like an actress slash singer. The name would give the impression that maybe she's from Mexico or Spain, but she was born in Texas, so by all degrees, she is an American citizen. But here is her now deleted video she posted crying about the things that are happening to, quote, the children, and, quote, her people. Right, let's play that clip.
I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children. don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
So Ryan, I think all these reactions are quite ridiculous, but I think what's weird about Selena Gomez's video here is that she puts the Mexican flag and she says "my people," even though she does not have Mexican citizenship. We've been told by liberals and leftists that illegal immigrants think of themselves as Americans, and those that support them do too. And yet, why is it that we just keep seeing Mexican and foreign flags, and then Selena Gomez, of all people, saying "my people"?
Yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, everyone in America is a descendant from a country. That's how it came to fruition. But like, if Irish people were getting deported, I wouldn't be waving the Irish flag, calling it "my people," because they're not. So, and for her to do that, it's stupid. There's not it's not much to say. She's a Hollywood cushioned, everything handed to her in a sense that because she has millions of followers on Instagram and all that, she's been in the mainstream for a while. That's just what they do. They go they try and make a wave with complaining and crying on social media when she really doesn't even know the facts that I don't think one kid has been deported yet.
No.
So,
And my question is, like, where were the tears for Lincoln Briley or other Americans who have been not only just killed by illegal aliens, but also just kind of like displaced through work or through insurances going up, like health insurance and auto insurance because of their impact. Like
she doesn't have those real world issues.
She doesn't.
She doesn't. That's why she can sit there and cry and be all emotional. But you know what? I don't care.
Well, Tom Homan had an official reaction because he was on Fox News, I think, with Martha Brennan, and she had asked about it. And in classic Homan fashion, he kind of just said, tough shit. I don't know why the media, especially like places like CNN, continue to book Tom Homan knowing that they're going to get schooled by him because they ask the most low IQ, inefficient, and ineffective line of questioning that no one, I don't know, no one feels any sense of like, oh, this is real hard hitting journalism. It's just, are you just throwing softballs so Tom Homan can just prove why we all voted for Trump? Someone needs to share that message with Caitlin Collins because she tried to interview Tom Homan last night. And in classic Homan fashion, he said, we're going to go after the killers. We're going to go after the rapists. But if you're an illegal alien by any measures of the definition, you were on the table for deportation. Right, let's play that clip.
What we had heard from immigration advocates is that this is going to provide a chilling effect to parents in the school drop-off line or something of that matter.
It shouldn't be a chilling effect unless your child's a terrorist or a public safety threat. If they are a public safety threat and national security threat, they should be chilled. They should be afraid because we're looking for them.
Well, if their parent is here and they're an undocumented immigrant, I think was more of the argument that they were making.
They're not off the table either. I mean, they're in the country illegally, they got a problem. I mean, it's not okay. Look, it's not okay to enter this country illegally. It's a crime. And that's the way it's supposed to be. I wouldn't feel comfortable if I'm in Switzerland illegally. So we're going to enforce the laws of this country. So, the schools and the churches and central location was a policy only for ICE, only for immigration, right? But national security threats and public safety threats have no safe haven in this country, and we'll go where we got to go.
I love that Tom Homan, just doesn't mess around, man. I hope he continues to do more of these interviews simply just to school a lot of these hosts. But he's a busy man. When he's not schooling them, he's out like doing ICE raids. There's plenty of videos of that too that maybe we'll share tomorrow. And I want to return to CNN in a little bit, simply because there's some developing news out of their side of things. But before we jump into that, we have a video here. It's about 3 minutes long. But it's super critical and it feels a little more personal and important to us too. It's with Ron DeSantis. He released this video yesterday. A very big thing, obviously, here with Trump, even just down in in Doral, with all the Republican lawmakers, is to get that everyone that is Team Red on board with the agenda. And while it may seem like a no questions asked kind of thing, it's more so no interference, please. Ron DeSantis is perfect at executing those agendas and those plans. I mean, I think he is a fantastic governor. When there's a natural disaster, he's on the spot, he's ready. Yeah, he fell short with running for president, but at least what he has been able to do for the state to a high degree, and not everyone's perfect, but he has done a quite considerably A plus job, at least in my viewpoint. And I think what might be frustrating for him is that he knows Florida has become a very strong Republican stronghold and didn't used to always be that way. So when you have a legislature that is kind of all of a sudden throwing a blockade or almost a little bit of an interference into your governorship or your leadership, it's rightful to call them out, especially to kind of give maybe Trump the headway of like, hey, we got some problems here. So here's just a 3 minute clip, and I think it's just very evident of DeSantis's character. He wants, enforcement, immigration enforcement, to be sought through. Here's him kind of calling out his own legislature of how they're trying to basically undermine the Trump agenda. So it's something very important that I think everyone needs to hear. All right, let's play that clip.
So we called a special session of the Florida legislature in part to focus on immigration enforcement and to assist the Trump administration in this historic effort to finally have enforcement of immigration laws and secure our country once and for all. The legislature did not want to do it. They said it was premature, but they did come in today and gavelled in on their session on immigration. We had a series of very, very strong proposals. While they included some of the things we said, most of the stuff that's really, really going to be meaningful was not in the proposal put forward by leaders of the Florida legislature, the Republican leaders. You have to have a requirement that state and local entities actively cooperate with immigration enforcement federally. Otherwise, none of this stuff is going to amount to much. They gutted the interior enforcement provisions that we had where we're all working in unison. It's not enough to just say we're not a sanctuary state, which we're not. It's not enough to just say we don't have sanctuary cities, which we don't. We need everybody on board. We got to work as a team. Otherwise, this stuff just isn't going to work. They also bizarrely strip immigration enforcement power from the governor and give it to the commissioner of agriculture. But agriculture has not exactly been known for immigration enforcement. So it's almost like the fox guarding the hen house. It was bizarre. I think it was more a sop to folks who want cheap labor. That is totally bad policy. That can't happen. They also bizarrely didn't include things we know needs to happen. It should be a crime for an illegal alien to register to vote. We've been trying to do this for years. Now's the time to do it. They did not include that in their proposal, which was very disappointing. And then we also need to crack down on illegal alien gangs. We had very strong provisions to do that. That was not in what the legislative leaders proposed. Now, they've named this bill the Trump Act, but that's a misnomer because President Trump's been very strong coming out of the gate on immigration enforcement. He wants to solve this problem once and for all. The bill they did is more window dressing. It is not going to solve the problem. We're not here for theatrics. We're not here to do messaging bills. The only thing we need to do is to do things that are going to actually solve the problems for Floridians once and for all. People of Florida have spoke loud and clear over many election cycles that they want to be strong on illegal immigration. We have so many great potentials to be working collaboratively with the federal government. I've been speaking with folks in the administration, but what the legislature do not only will not allow us to do it, it will actively inhibit some of the things we're already doing. So now's the time to be tough. No squishing out here. We got to get the job done.
Yeah, right. I gotta say, it's got to be very frustrating for Ron DeSantis, someone who has done a lot of great things for the state. He is very pro enforcement when it comes to getting illegal aliens out, and he, like he says in that video, he has no tolerance for sanctuary anything. I'm just a little surprised that I guess the Florida legislature is trying to undermine the Trump agenda.
I'm not that surprised because Florida is booming in the sense that a lot is being built and it's being built fast, and so you have all these legislators who probably got a lot of donations to get into their spot from these construction or these big typhoon real estate people. And I bet you they, can tout being a Republican all they want and being conservative. but they require this cheap labor to build what they want. So I'm not surprised that they're kind of pushing back and making it difficult for DeSantis to put out the Trump agenda just because of those special interests. And I'm sure they're lobbying hard with them, being like, hey, we're not going to fund your next campaign because I want to build a skyscraper in Miami and I need, cheap labor to do it. So I'm not surprised with that, but I think DeSantis and then Trump, hopefully, I think DeSantis putting out the warning call to Trump, like, hey, I got this going on, and no one wants to go against Trump. So hopefully they can connect and get that figured out. But it's two cores.
Of course, and you're right. I mean, not only does DeSantis address, obviously with the cheap labor side of things as to why these rhino Republicans would advocate for it, but he even says, this has been a multi-election cycle issue where almost all the time, whether it's the number one issue or in the top three, consecutively for tax-paying Americans, illegal immigration is the issue. Not just the ones that are killers and rapists and murderers and criminals, like those are bad people too, but the ones that are impacting all facets of what should be a normal set livelihood. Auto insurances shouldn't have to be going up because illegals are driving and crashing their cars. Health insurance shouldn't have to go up because they're flooding hospital emergency rooms. It's an impact that just people are so fed up with. It's why they're voting for people like Trump to say, hey, get them out. Like, we're over it. We're so over it. So I love that DeSantis is calling them out. Ryan, to return to CNN, like I was mentioning earlier, Jim Acosta is officially out of the network. And there'll probably be a little more of details as to why he's gone, but it does seem like it's more mutual grounds. And I just find it so ironic because if we were to turn the clock 8 years ago, it's almost like he had a more powerful position because of his antagonism that he thrived off of by being I'm just going to always give Trump BS, and we have a flashback clip to prove it. But to talk about how the tables have turned, Trump is now president again. He's riding high on an approval rating. Every person of his administration or even Republican congressman, lawmaker at this point that jumps on CNN and MSNBC makes an absolute fool out of their hosts. And yet now here we are, Jim Acosta is gone. He's done. And I just want to play this clip. It's a flashback from about 8 years ago, back during the days when they tried to claim Trump was in cahoots with Russia, and there was this whole thing of undermining America. Turned out to all be a hoax, but here is that clip. It's the only way that Jim Acosta will ever really reach true fame, if you want my opinion, of where Jim Acosta basically got put in his place by Donald Trump. All right, let's play the clip.
On the Russia investigation, are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation? Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not
like
a big
the rest
fan of yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question if I can. You repeatedly said...
You aren't the best.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course of the...
Okay, just sit down, please. Sit down. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
I think this is a long time coming. And I could just say that had to very, very much be the peak of Acosta's popularity because the man's never done anything really noteworthy or accomplishing since then. I think CNN's making the right move of getting rid of him, and maybe we could get a little bit more of some Scott Jennings, just as a recommendation. But I'm glad to see him out the door. To end the show, I want to play this clip because I saw it last night. I find it interesting, and it's always telling when you see something like this because you know something's coming up the pipeline. Bill Gates really has no obligation to talk about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein unless he knows his name is about to be on an upcoming chopping block, such as potentially the release of the Epstein client list. Trump has talked about before releasing that list or getting that list out there. So I'm only led to believe that him doing a sit down interview with the Wall Street Journal to kind of allude or touch upon his mistakes with the relationship of Jeffrey Epstein. You don't have to be a mathematician to put together that something's coming, and this is Bill Gates trying to maybe save face as much as he can last minute. Ryan, let's play our last video here, and then I want to ask your opinion on it.
In retrospect, I was foolish to spend any time with him.
The Journal previously reported on Gates's ties to Jeffrey Epstein, including that Epstein threatened Gates over an affair he had. The two met a few times, Gates says, to discuss philanthropy.
Do you think, looking back at that moment, that you were being played?
Well, Jeffrey, in retrospect, I was foolish to spend any time with him, and he sort of, got time with various people by spending time with other people. So yes, I think I was quite stupid. I thought it would help me with global health philanthropy. In fact, it failed to do that, and it was just a huge mistake.
Has it made you more wary of connections?
Definitely.
Yeah, right. So when you see that Bill Gates is doing that official sit down, proper, British lady interview to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, one has to wonder that maybe something is coming along the pipeline that he's trying to get ahead of.
Yeah, I mean, look at Hawkins, for example. I mean, he was renowned and no one would have thought twice. And then all that stuff came out about with him and the midgets. So I wouldn't be, when I look at Bill Gates, I just see guilty all around. So in my book, he's guilty. He's guilty of something, a lot of things. But I'm sure he didn't just hang out with Epstein for philanthropy reasons.
No, I think from, his wife, Melinda Gates, is a very, very, very left-leaning individual. But I still remember when they announced their divorce, that a lot of that had to do with his ties to Epstein. So
it's funny. I don't think he was behind. He wasn't at the inauguration.
No.
Yeah.
In
So
fact,
that tells you everything. You need
the
to know.
only thing that Bill Gates has done related to Trump in the last few months was that he visited Mar-a-Lago. And if you really want my ultimate guess, I bet it was related to that, because I don't think Trump has any interest in working with Bill Gates, considering Gates's more nefarious goals and mindsets. Could be wrong. You never know. There could be some kind of contract in the future, because Trump sometimes has to make things work even when he doesn't want to work with that person. Kind of like this whole Sam Altman situation with OpenAI. But I think if I had to really guess here, the fact that he wasn't at the inauguration, he's not really a close Trump associate, I wouldn't be surprised if that visit was related to, hey, man, so what's going on with this list that everyone's waiting for the release? Because, look, ultimately, this list will be very compromising for a lot of top high-up individuals. So it's more of just a matter of official confirmation. I just thought it was very interesting that you got Bill Gates sitting down with Wall Street Journal and be like, hey, man, let's talk about my whole stint with Jeffrey Epstein. That's a classic, trying to get ahead of something before it gets out. So that's it, though, for the show today. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, we've been really ramping up on the 47 report. Each week, we're just kind of introducing new sections. This past week, we've introduced kind of a section where we will be announcing DML CBD specials. Right now, we actually have one going on for 25% off. If you go to dmlcbd.com/miracle, you can actually get the body oil for 25% off right now. But each week, we'll be adding new sections. I believe next week, we'll either add a section related to the border, or we may start to introduce meme of the day. But it's going to grow as Trump's presidency continues to unfold, especially with these very critical first 100 days. So if you haven't signed up or you want to share it with someone, go to 47report.com and sign up there. As for tomorrow, should be 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time live. DML will likely be back in the studio. And for today's Team DML blessing, I would like to give it to Nella Love. I hope you all have a great day.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.